Mini Terrain Domain Sunless Citadel D&D mini campaign is sponsored by our friends at Absolute Tabletop. A vast and loathsome shadow approaches. Coming Tuesday, September 4th from Absolute Tabletop. Introducing the upcoming Kickstarter for Absolute Tabletop's second volume of any nominated adventure kits, Shadows over Drift Chapel. Shadows over Drift Chapel is a fantasy horror adventure set in Gloam, a Victorian colonial-inspired world brimming with eldritch horrors, flickering gaslight, and destructive black powder. This versatile adventure-building resource contains everything you've come to love about adventure kits. Modular locations and encounters, intriguing NPCs and fulfilling plot lines, encounter and scene generators ready for on-the-fly use, plus a few extra stretch goals if you'll help fund beyond the initial goal. Hither comes the Gloam. On Tuesday, September 4th, the Kickstarter begins, and the monstrosities and madness of Drift Chapel will be thrust upon you. Follow Absolute Tabletop on Kickstarter to get real-time updates and be one of the first to help fund their next adventure kit, Shadows over Drift Chapel. Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is MTD&D's The Sunless Citadel, Episode 1 of A Tales from the Yawning Portal mini campaign in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition with some crafty individuals. This game has been in the works for a couple of months, doing what I could to assemble an all-star cast of people that I love playing with or have wanted to play with or have only gotten to play with once. So I am very excited to bring this mini campaign to you today. And for the first time, Mini Terrain Domain is simultaneously streaming to Twitch and YouTube. So I'm excited about that too, to get a little bit of both worlds and not have to upload the video at a later time, so that people will be able to watch it right away when it becomes available. So we are going to be playing Sunless Citadel, which is an adventure that I believe originated in 3rd edition, probably close to 20 years ago, 18 years ago, something like that. But we're going to be playing the 5th edition version from Tales from the Yawning Portal. And it is a level 1 adventure, so I'm going to try not to TPK tonight so we can have more adventures. With that said, I've done enough talking. I'm going to go around the overlay here and let each of these amazing players introduce themselves, and then we're going to kind of get into the game itself. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to start up in the, as I'm looking at it, the upper left-hand corner. Scotty, I know you're kind of an obscure figure on YouTube, so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hey guys, I'm DM Scotty, and I like to make terrain, so but I love to play just as much as I like to make terrain, so but I'm usually a dungeon master, so I'm here tonight. I get to play. It's always fun when I get to be on the other side of the table and not dungeon mastering. So I'm really excited to play this character. And yeah, here I am.
And I'm excited to have you, since the only time I played with you is when you were the villain trying to kill us in Wylock's game. So next we're going to drop down right below Scotty to a regular here on Mini Terrain Domain, Megan.
Hey everyone, I'm Megan. I am one half of the YouTube channel Dice on Ice, and really excited to play. I am playing with 2 new people, so it's always really exciting to expand your player pool. So I'm really, really pumped, really excited. So thanks for having me.
And next is a man who it's almost a crime how little we have actually played together. But I think it's because we're always running games at the same time. But we have played together, and I'm glad we get to extend the playtime, as it were, with this mini campaign. Jeremy, introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeremy. I run the YouTube channel, The Erasmus Expeditions, where I do a lot of live plays. I think we've just talked over 100 videos over there, and I just started posting crafting videos recently. I've been crafting for some time, but have neglected to put videos of it up. So go check it out. I am also 1/3 of the podcast, The Dudes of Yore, with my friends Jeff Doty and Chad Nick. We can also be found on YouTube. And I am so excited to be here. I can't even adequately put it into words. So thank you, Jake, for inviting me to be a part of this.
And last but certainly not least, another stranger to the YouTubes in the world of crafting. Somebody who I had the pleasure of playing alongside for several weeks in the aforementioned Wylock game. V, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am V. I have the YouTube channel, The Crafting Muse, and you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm going to be starting something up with Twitch soon. It was just a matter of getting the kids out of the house. But no, I'm excited to play this because I finally get to be the pain in the butt to the DM this go around.
Okay.
Okay.
This is the first time that I'm hearing this.
Well, if I sprung it on you ahead of time, what fun would it be?
But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't expected.
Hey, one word, Benedict.
I knew that would come to bite me. All right. Well, as I said, it is just awesome to get to play with you guys and to spend a few weeks telling some stories together as we do, and just a good old classic dungeon crawl and some good role play and throwing some dice. So what we're going to do, and for those that are tuning in to watch right now, this is kind of doing a little dual purpose. It's a little bit of a session zero with and we'll just kind of roll into the adventure proper. We've been chatting for a while now about characters in a private chat, and we established some very basic things to each of you individually. That way, taking what we talked about, we'll kind of reveal it to everybody else as we go along, because each of you're level 1, so you're brand new to the world of adventuring, though you do have a past. So what I'm actually going to do right now is I'm going to roll a d4 and see who we're going to start with. And you know what? Just because it never gets much love, I'm going to change that up. I'm going to roll a d12. Although, with Jeremy playing a barbarian, I think we're going to see some d12 action. Whoops. Not even in my tray. All right, that is an 11. Looks like Cantriel. We are going to start with you. So why don't you tell us about Cantriel, who you are, where you hail from, and where you are now.
Okay. Well, my full name is Cantriel Cavatina, and I'm actually from Faerun. But when I was a younger elf, my family just disappeared one night. I have no idea what happened to them. I was left alone, woke up to a completely empty home. Luckily for me, some star elves took me in, and I've been living with them for the past century or so. And they saw that I had an affinity for playing instruments and music, so they started teaching me their ways in music and the magic of music. So underneath their instruction, I became a bard. And I was actually quite content there, going to different homes and sharing my talents with others and learning from other star elf families. However, about 3 months ago, I got this very mysterious letter speaking of my family and about how things are not all that it might seem, and that I need to go to a certain destination to find out more. So having found this out, I got the blessing of the family I was staying with, packed up my worldly possessions, and I headed here.
Here, being Oakhurst. Oakhurst is it's not a huge town. It's largely a farming community, though it does have a shrine. It's got, a village hall, a general store, jail, blacksmith. Of course, there's an inn and tavern. All the general accoutrements of a small town. The old road used to run a long time ago, had a lot of travel, and the town of Oakhurst used to be a much busier town in its history. But that has fallen away over many, many years, and so the town has shrunk. In your time here, as you've been investigating your origins and just kind of getting acclimated to the life here, where would you have stayed? Would you have set up and been staying in a room at the Old Boar Inn, or would you have maybe found other means of living?
I actually decided to stay at the inn because it would have been a good place to sort of get an eye on everything and get some stories from others and play a little bit here and there and see what I could find out.
Yeah, and you would have found that it only took a matter of a couple weeks for people to stop turning to stare at the newcomer, and you would have eventually become a fixture. People just accepted you as part of the community, even though you're staying at the inn. Now, with your particular affinity for music, would you have been performing?
Oh, you have to stop me from performing more often than not.
Go ahead and roll me a performance check.
Oh, cute. Natural 20.
It wasn't even a full week before not only you became a fixture in this town, that you actually have gained free room and board at the Old Boar Inn because of your performances. The human man that runs the place, Garen, noticed that your first performance wasn't even complete, and more patrons had shown up that night than even on the weekend. And you have, in your time here, you have kept, every time you perform, attendance grows. So people are definitely liking your performance. What is your performance?
It's a little bit of singing. It's a little bit of playing some different instruments. It's, sometimes even some witticisms if someone's trying to be a smart aleck from the audience. So it's a little bit of everything.
Oh yeah, you got a couple of the farmers that the first couple times you were performing tried to be smartasses. They tried to heckle you, and you were having none of it. Go ahead and give me a. We're gonna do another charisma check. I'll let you choose how you want to do that. But we're just checking to see how good your wit is versus the heckling.
Okay. With my charisma added in?
Yep.
That's going to be 13.
You have to come back at them a few times, but they get the point that there's nothing they can say that's going to throw you off your game, and you are not going to let them get the best of you. And eventually, you even win them over. Meanwhile, Scotty, tell us about... Is it Griveth? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about Griveth.
So when you see Griveth, he is a huge man. He's large-shouldered. He's 6 feet. He's 6 feet 5 inches tall. Dark hair. But you also notice that he has a lot of scars. Like his face is very scarred up. So obviously he's been in a lot of trauma or battles. He but when you look in his eyes, there's like a kindness there that you wouldn't expect. There's a kindness, but if you look deeper, someone who has a little bit more perception might notice that there's a little bit of sadness in there too. There's something sad in those eyes. But he doesn't mope. He doesn't carry himself that way. He carries himself very strongly. He actually came to this town about a year ago to the temple, and he is a follower of Eldath, and that is the goddess of peace. And so these kind of paladins are welcome anywhere, right? Because it's like a peacemaker thing. It's like that's their philosophy. So the other temples invite these kind of disciples from Eldath to their different temples because they basically get along with everybody. They build bridges and that kind of thing. He's always seen he wears his armor. His armor is not like overly spectacular, but it's well worn, but he keeps it in good repair. He's not trying to be flashy or lord over anybody by any means. Some people have tried to find out, like, where did this mysterious man come from? Where, what is his past? And he's fairly tight-lipped about it. But a few times people have gotten something out of him that he was in a horrendous battle, actually not long ago, right? He was a soldier his entire life. And it's only now that he's recently become a paladin this last year. And he came to this town about that time. So they get that he's had some kind of horrific incident in his past in this horrible battle, but they really haven't gotten anything else out of him. He's very tight-lipped about it. He also is Cantriel has noticed him. I mean, he's kind of, he's like a head over the other people in this town, right? And she's seen him at her performances, and he seems very touched by her performances, and always attentive. And he like, she gets the feeling that he wants to know her better, like he wants to be friends and that kind of thing. So that's Griveth.
Griveth, other than showing up for Cantriel's performances at the Old Boar Inn, do you spend more time at the shrine, or do you spend time out amongst the community?
It's kind of a thing of conjecture. They kind of cloister at the temple and that kind of thing. And he doesn't seem to be someone that likes to spend his time alone. Like, he likes to be around people. So he spends much more time out of the temple than in.
Okay. So the shrine where you, of course, as a follower of Eldrath, were welcomed without question, as the followers of Eldrath often are. The shrine is being run by theDMsCraft, she goes by the name Corky, and she is a gnome priest of Pelor. But the shrine in this village, like many of them throughout the lands, tend to be all faith shrines. There are certain regions where you will find shrines to specific deities, but this is an all faith shrine, as there are some people keep to specific gods, particularly the farmers and others. But Pelor seems to kind of be an all-encompassing deity in this region. And in your year here, you've gotten to know Corky quite well. She is the one who handles a lot of the day-to-day of the shrine, maintains the shrine. She does the healing for the people, though I imagine you've kind of almost like an acolyte, though you have other training from your background. You've kind of learned alongside her. Less so have you been learning how to do the types of things that she's doing, but more so about the people. Corky just knows the people. In your first few weeks here, no matter where you went, people greeted her warmly. She knew everything about people. Corky's been around for a long time, and many of the families you've seen, she's been responsible for 2 or 3 generations of midwifing or delivering, the children. And not just the children, but a lot of the farm animals too, because she doubles down as the local veterinarian for some of the livestock. Several of the have gotten to know several of the people in town, and in particular, you're very aware of what passes for the nobility in this town. Is the merchants who run the general store, particularly Carolyn Hucreely, who is a noble woman that runs just the general store. We're gonna in a few minutes we're gonna come back to Griveth and Cantriel, as we are going to see what is Vi all about. Who is Vi? Who is she? Why is she here? How long has she been here?
Vi appeared into Oakhurst about 15 years ago when she was 27. She had nothing but the clothes on her back and a knowledge of working hard and she knew the farming practices, and so she fit right in. People liked her. She had a motherly way about her, stern but fair, blunt but usually right in the end. She worked she managed to get a job with an apothecary there, and she befriended the owner, a gnome named Bilwyn. And when he passed down the apothecary onto her. And so she has been working there, and she's been living in Oakhurst for the last 15 years. The one thing about her is that she is terrified of any and all animals. She prefers to stay inside the city. She will not go out into the fields, and will often get people, usually younger assistants, to go out and get the herbs for her that she needs.
Roll me a charisma check. Actually, Scotty, I forgot to have Griveth. I want a charisma, just general charisma from Griveth as well.
Okay, you got it. I got a 15.
I got a 10.
Roll me a d4, Vi.
That's a 3.
There are 3 young people in town that take turns. A lot of the children did not really warm up to you. Children are very attuned to the vibes that other people put out, and they can almost, like animals, seem to sense the fear that you seem to, even though you may think you hide it. So it took some time to find some children, and really the only 3 kids that would help you are a family of 3 that are actually from the outermost farming communities where you dare not go. And they're from one of the poorest families in the region, and they just need the extra silver or gold that you give them. So they will gladly run the errands of delivering potions and salves and herbs and things, both gathering them for you and delivering them. Though I think you would find that Corky, who eventually in the last year came to be accompanied by this large human paladin, Griveth, would often come to get supplies from you to take out into the community and deal with the ailments around there. Why don't you give me... I'm going to call it a performance check. And what you are checking is to see how well you are able to teach these kids the proper herbs together. But I'm going to have you do it with advantage since they're children from the farming community. They know a little bit about agriculture.
Okay, because I got a nat 1.
You've been secretly poisoning the town. This is quite a dichotomy. We've had a nat 20 and a nat 1.
The second one wasn't much better. I got a 3. So, I think that oftentimes she would need to give them strict instructions. As kids do, they wander off, they get distracted, they find a pretty flower, and they get confused of, oh, was it a blue flower, red thorns, or red flower, blue thorns kind of thing. And I feel like she would have to double and triple check everything that they bring back.
Yeah, absolutely. What has happened is you're very fortunate that one, you have been in this town for as long as you have, and two, you're the only apothecary for leagues in any direction that people just know it takes time. Every once in a while you might hear an old timer mumble about, well, Billwin never took this long, and Billwin gathered his own herbs, and Billwin this and Billwin that. But eventually over time that seemed to die down as people just got used to you moving at your own pace, though they don't really know that it's because of your inability to teach children. And Griveth, the charisma check I had you make was just to see how is your presence taken around town. You find that surprisingly, perhaps, given your kind of gruff appearance and nature, people actually take to you very quickly. Perhaps it's because of your open service to Eldrath, or perhaps you just naturally exude this some sort of warmth in your personality, that you did not have any trouble acclimating to the town, or getting people to trust you. And it was only a few months before Corky was able to send you out to, once you got to know who the families were, she could trust in you to go across town or go out into the community and deliver, either deliver potions, salves, or deliver a calf, whatever the case may be. And finally, tell us about Talmud. Who is Talmud? From where does he hail? And what is he doing in Oakhurst? And how long has he been here?
So Talmud is from the Gadaun clan. I think they're probably maybe about a month journey away from this place. And he is a stonecutter by trade. He's very, very built for the task. He's about as broad as he is tall, and his muscles have muscles. It's ridiculous to look at this individual. He's built like a horse and a tiger kind of rolled into one. But his guild has had dealings with the Hukrili family, in the past, this mercantile arrangement. And he has actually come to Oakhurst not that long ago, I think, maybe a month at the most, in order to answer a call for help from this merchant family. And he has come to kind of see what he can do about it. And I think he's probably just been making his living maybe on the fringes of the city, because you said it used to be a much larger city. So I imagine like the outskirts of the town is mainly ruins. So he might actually be making a living like carting old stone from the old part of the city to the new part of the city so that they can reuse it in construction.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. How long did you say you'd been in town?
I would say probably a month, maybe
Okay.
2.
So, first, I would like you to make a charisma check.
That's a 20.
All right.
So a 21 total.
So, you're the newcomer in town, and I imagine, just again, what I think really sold people to your presence was immediately upon your arrival, seeing that you were talking on a familiar basis with Kirwin Hukreeli, that somebody so important in town was talking to a stranger, that you must be somebody important. And I imagine you just kind of, in your exploration of the region, are naturally drawn to some of these older ruins. And nobody asked you to start gathering stone. Nobody asked you to do what you're doing. But you noticed that as you started, and I kind of imagine that you just, even without thinking about it, you seem to be sorting the stone by type of stone, by size, by shape, by usefulness. And some of the other people in town, the masons, the stonemasons, not like the Masons organization, in town, they took notice and realized, wait, we could actually use this. And they, just in the last few weeks, people have been starting to draft up plans on how they can build additions to the town using what you've been doing. So we're going to pop up to back in we'll say that this is a little bit before Talmud's arrival. And this is going to be one of those nights where Griveth is in the Old Boar Inn, watching and listening to Cantriel's performance. Vi, would you be there? Do you attend Cantriel's performances?
I think that you would from time to time, because it's probably the only form of entertainment in the town. And so she would kind of stand in the back, and just kind of watch.
So we're in the inn, and you know what? For the sake of moving things a little bit, I'm going to say this is actually shortly after Talmud's arrival. So Talmud, you can decide if you would be at this place. Griveth, what are you doing to get Cantriel's attention? Let's slide into the Old Boar Inn. It's evening. The townsfolk have come in from working at the various stores. You see Vi, who occasionally shows up, has kind of slipped into the back a little bit, as is per usual. You see several of the familiar farmers and farmhands, shopkeepers, and what have you, in their various places eating food, drinking beverages. Garen is scuttling about, passing out drinks and serving up food from the back kitchen. And Cantriel is at the front on a small, it's only a stage in the sense that it's an area where the floor has been built up an extra 6 inches. It's only about 6 feet by 6 feet, just big enough for 1, 2, or 3 performers to get up there. And if Cantriel wasn't here, it's often some of the other patrons. The more drunk they get, the more likely they are to find themselves up here. What has been, prior to Cantriel, has been known as the Fool's Stage. But you've noticed, since Cantriel's been performing here, nobody has dared step onto her stage, and nobody has called it the Fool's Stage. So first, Cantriel, tell us about tonight's performance.
I'm going to keep it a little bit more on the mellow side and quieter because the crowd doesn't seem too rambunctious. So I'm just going to be strumming my lute a little bit and maybe singing a song here and there and kind of seeing if there's anyone who's looking for anything in particular song-wise that they've heard me sing in the past. And just kind of feeding off the emotions I'm picking up while everyone's coming in. It doesn't seem to be too much of a party night, much to get together with friends and just reminisce with each other for a little while.
Give me an insight check.
Okay.
And Vi, I would like an insight check from you with advantage, because you've been here the longest.
It's a 14.
I got a 19.
So Cantriel, you're absolutely right. There is something, a palpable sense of something hanging in the air, though you don't entirely know what it is, just that you can sense it, and you're adjusting your music accordingly. And the audience, the patrons seem to, the murmuring, the conversation is very subdued. There's a group of folk in one corner that are respectfully talking amongst themselves, but they seem to be engaged in some pretty serious conversation. Vi, you've seen this before. The time of year is approaching the Midsummer. And in the 15 years that you've been here, this sort of palpable change in the overall mood of the town comes just like the seasons. It's as predictable as the Midsummer. And you know that it is because from the nearby ruins, and by nearby, they're outside of town about 10 miles, there's an old ruins known as the Sunless Citadel, though nobody really seems to know why that is. The ruins, from what you've heard, they lie at the bottom of a gorge, and nobody dares go there. In part, perhaps, because goblins infest the area. But you know that the goblins are sending an emissary soon for Midsummer, because every Midsummer, a goblin shows up with a single piece of fruit, a single bright apple. It's perfectly red, and no matter what disease ails someone, no matter what sicknesses, anybody who takes even a single bite, who sips a single sip of this apple's juice, they're healed of that ailment. But the goblins always extort a large price for this apple, and the town knows how much they need it, but they also can't bring themselves to spend too much money to give the goblins too much money, for fear that the goblins may use that money to purchase means of rising against them. So while they will pay for this magical fruit, there's a limit to how much they will compromise themselves. And sorry, I misspoke when I said for the last 15 years. This has only been happening for the last 12 years that this has been going on. You also know that when the townsfolk buy this apple and it is divided up amongst those who most need it, they take the seeds. They very carefully cultivate these seeds. They plant them. They care for them. They place them under guard. But no matter how much these seeds are guarded, as they begin to germinate and start to grow properly, eventually they reach a sapling height of about 2 feet. And no matter how closely they are guarded, every year they are stolen. Some suspect the goblins are stealing them back so that the townsfolk can't grow their own fruit. So you definitely know what's going on here tonight. Griveth, give me an insight check. Talmud, are you here?
I think he's just come into town, into the main part of town, and he might notice that a crowd is starting to gather, so he'll head that direction.
Okay. How'd you do, Griveth?
15.
Yeah, you also are picking up on this vibe, this change, and Corky seems to also be picking up on it a bit. It's something she seems a little reluctant to directly talk about, but you can tell where Corky is almost always smiling, and often her small gnomish figure sitting in the inn with her feet dangling over the stool and 2 hands holding a mug that's way too large for her. She seems to just be sitting there with this mug barely touched and just occasionally dipping her finger in the foam and tasting of the suds of her beer. And she seems to be kind of out of it too. So what are you doing, Griveth, as Cantriel's performing, and you've kind of been trying to just put out this mental desire to connect?
He, as far as Cantriel goes, it's kind of like he won't approach her. Like he sits back and he waits for her to approach him. Like it's kind of this waiting game to see if she will. But she definitely notices that when she does the kind of more sorrowful, somber songs, that he is very attentive, and he seems to be almost in a meditation when she does that. Like it's like he's almost in like a kind of a blissful state. It's a strange thing. But Griveth is kind of drawn to Corky, and he sees her kind of contemplation and her jitters, and he's known her for a while, and they become friendly, friends. And so he's little sister, what troubles you tonight?
She sighs deeply. Looking around. She looks up at you. You just tower over her. And finally, she does pick up her very large mug of ale. She takes a long pull at it. It's that time of year again.
So I lean closer in to, so we can have a little more intimate conversation, since I'm so huge. And what time of year?
The Midsummer approaches. Surely you can sense the changes in the air.
Yes, it is strange tonight. Something doesn't feel quite right.
We are people of faith, Griveth, yes? You serve Eldrath, and I serve Pelor, and you've known many of these folks now for nearly a year, and so many of them, though, on typical nights here in the Old Boar, don't necessarily show their devoutness. Everyone has a respect for the gods and for the lands. But on the Midsummer's Eve, they all put their faith somewhere else. And that time is approaching. Tomorrow.
Is there anything we can do about it?
I've spoken with the elders of the village. I've spoken with Carolyn O'Creely, who, as you know, holds the most sway in this town. But there's not much we can do. This will play out as it is played out every year. But if truth be told, Griveth, this isn't even what troubles my heart so much. Tell me, Griveth, would you be willing, if thou not sent by Eldrath, to embark on the task that I send you on in the name of Pelor and in the name of Oakhurst?
Of course, dear sister. Anything you ask, I am at your service.
She places a hand, a tiny gnomish hand, on top of your gruff hand, and looks up at you with almost sad eyes. I admire your willingness to serve, even though I've not said what it is. But you're so quick to jump at anything I fear for you as well. But I have faith in Pelor and even Eldrath that this is the right course to set you upon.
I bow to your wisdom, and I am ready. I am ready to prove myself to these people and to our temple.
You have no doubt in your time here heard of the ruins nearby.
Yes, people speak ill of it. Ill omens. Danger.
No doubt, because of the goblins and other things that have taken up residence deep in the chasm, where it is said that the ancient citadel crashed so long ago. Occasionally, adventurers find their way through our town and find their way to the citadel. For along with the rumours of old ruins come the rumours of treasure and fame and fortune. And there are those that can't help but succumb to that lure. Not long ago, adventurers came through town. Two of them. I don't know if you had actually gotten to know Talgrin and Sharwin, for they'd been away for quite some time. When they passed through, barely speaking to their mother Carolyn, for yes, they are Hercules. They were a member of an adventuring party that went down into the darkness. That's been nearly a month now, and naught has been seen or heard from them. Carolyn is beseeching our help, and it is this that I would task you to. Are you still so willing to step forth into the darkness where the light of Pelor doesn't even shine?
I am willing to do this. Although, I would ask for help. If there is anybody who in the village who would like to help seek out these people.
I feel that tonight or tomorrow the gods will place before us those who have been chosen to aid in this quest.
I trust in your wisdom.
So while Griveth and Corky have been having this conversation, Cantriel providing just a nice, almost melancholy backdrop to all of the conversation taking place. I forgot his name. Garen, the barkeep, comes by Cantriel a couple times to make sure, as he says, "Want to make sure those pipes are wetted nicely so you don't lose your voice." Always keeping... What is your drink of preference while you've been here?
I tend to go for mead.
Never have you seen the bottom of your mead glass. Garen ensures. I imagine that he has found that the more you drink, the more ribald your tunes become sometimes, or perhaps the less... though I doubt Cantriel is inhibited at all. There's even less inhibition in your lyrics and your stories. But most of all, the more you drink, the more your wit jabs back at those mouthy farmers. Vi, what are you doing as you notice the music is playing? Garen, of course, paying for every table he serves. He seems to stop by Cantriel. You notice Griveth and Corky in hushed conversation. You notice Kirwin, Mayor Werner Ling, the Constable Felocial, the prominent people in town are all in a corner in hushed whispers. How are you occupying your time this evening?
Vi takes a leaf of some herb. She pops it into her mouth. She chews it up. And she has this small little kind of clay pot. And she kind of spits it into this pot. Takes another leaf, this time of a different, darker color. Sticks that in her mouth. Chews it up. And while she's doing this, she's just kind of scanning the crowd. She's picking up on the mood, and I think she is actually very... she respects Cantriel for picking up this aura and being able to entertain in accordance with that. But she's just kind of taking notice of everything. Nothing seems to slip her gaze as she prepares a salve for someone in the city.
Talmud, at this point, you've been in town long enough that you've kind of begun doing your voluntary quarry work. You're at least you're new enough that people lift their head when you walk in the door, but you've been here long enough that they quickly turn back to their food and drink because they're used to seeing you around town. You come into the Old Boar Inn, seeing a steady stream of folk, but you don't hear what you would expect, perhaps, in a tavern of the more upbeat music. It's very, very beautiful music indeed, but there's just a general... For a moment, you may even think that you've walked into a wake of sorts. There almost seems to be a dirge-like quality. It's not somber per se, but it seems to be flirting with dirge. And it's less Cantriel's music than it is the blend of her music and the palpable mood in the room, the hushed voices where you would expect there to be more raucous laughter and cheer. What do you do as you come in?
So, Talmud, who's been working all day, hefting stone back and forth, is going to cross straight to the bar. And he's probably halfway there before he even registers the mood of the crowd. He's got his mind so focused on the day's end and his reward that's waiting behind that bar. So he continues onward, and he just kind of puts Gerta, his maul, up on the bar and calls the keep over with a wave of his hand. And he says, "I'll have a pint of your stoutest ale, and don't give me any of that human piss water you serve." Whenever he comes back with it, he kind of leans on real close. He says, "Who died?"
He comes back with a he's holding a bottle, as he had disappeared for a little bit, a few extra minutes back in the back room. He comes in holding this bottle, kind of looking at it, and he tips it upside down. A big poof of dust, and he brushes off the label and says, "I don't think you can complain about this one, dwarf." And he sets the dark bottle in front of you. It's more than a pint. It's the size of a wine bottle. And in Dwarvish is a name that just to be associated with an old clan of brewmasters. And it just says Cleargan across it. Their dwarven ale was so strong and renowned that they only had to put their name on it. There's no doubt, at least in your dwarven mind, you know what Cleargan is.
There's actually like a small audible gasp from Talmud as he like instinctively starts to reach for it, and then he kind of catches himself and raises these extremely bushy eyebrows that sit kind of at the bottom of this shelf of a forehead he has that's got these, runic and kind of knotted tattoos all over it. And he kind of raises one of those big caterpillars up. "How much do I owe you for this?"
That depends. How much of them are you planning on drinking? How long you in town for, friend?
That's a great question. I'm waiting to talk to that woman over there. And he kind of points to where the Hokreely woman is sitting.
Aye, well, you give me 5 silver pieces if you promise to keep drinking them until I run out. Mind you, don't drink them all tonight, but I've had these around here for, I think it's been almost 5 years now, and nobody in town will drink them.
Well, I suppose I can do you the favor and get rid of them for you.
5 silver a bottle, and you drink all you want. As for who died, that's not so much a matter of who died, but there have been folk who've gone missing, and of course the Midsummer's coming up. Of course, you being new around here, you wouldn't know what that means. We don't expect you to. But what do you know of Curwin?
My clan has had dealings with her for a long time. She's some kind of bigwig around here with the merchants, I think.
She's considered one of the elders, though you wouldn't know it by looking at her. And if your clans had dealings with her, and you know who she was by sight, then I don't mind telling you that I wouldn't go making jokes about who died around her this night. She's a bit on edge. Her son and her daughter have gone missing. Would you be knowing about them if you know about the Hercules?
I've heard that she has some runs, but I hadn't heard the names or anything about them.
Right. And during this, he's kind of, he pulls a large corkscrew, for this bottle is sealed with cork and wax. And on one end is a knife that he kind of peels away the wax. And he uses this corkscrew and while talking, the whole time he's talking, he just expertly into this old cork and just slowly eases it out. And you get that, and then you catch that whiff of a strong, stout ale.
His mustache kind of quivers a little, and he kind of reaches up nonchalantly and kind of wipes away a little bit of the drool that's gathering at the corners of his mouth.
And he says, "You didn't hear it from me, but her son and her daughter, Teldrin and Sharwin, fancied themselves adventurous. They've been out and about for a couple of years now. Came back through town about a month ago in search of that, the old ruins they call the Sunless Citadel. And the thing is, they haven't been seen since. Now, with the goblins sending their emissary tomorrow, tensions are a bit high."
I'm sorry. Did you just say the words goblin and emissary in the same sentence with each other?
Indeed.
You don't just kill the little fucker.
Well, look, truth be told, I think that's what Tolgrin and Sharwin were out doing in the ruins, looking to figure out what these goblins were up to.
Good.
And how they get here with the apple they bring every year.
They bring an apple. Your town takes a goblin apple and lets them live. Here.
You don't understand.
No, clearly I'm missing something.
You're clearly missing something. Look, keep your eyes peeled. Keep your ears peeled. Keep your axe or hammer or whatever you have handy. And if you're going to talk to Kerwin, I suggest you do it before she gets caught up in the announcement business.
I appreciate it, friend. What's your name? He kind of extends his forearm.
Garen, I'm the proprietor and owner of the Old Boar Inn here. And you make it. Throw another 5 silver pieces in, and I'll put you up for a night.
How comfortable are your beds?
Comfortable enough.
Are they clean?
Look, you've not been in town long enough to be asking me about the cleanness of my sheets. Do you have a place to lay your head otherwise? Would you like to lay your head on the rocks you've been hauling around?
I'd rather not, but, I have to ask. I don't want to wake up with the itches all over my body. I've got to make sure I'm well taken care of. My body is my chapel.
Look, you sleep in the bed or you sleep outside, I don't care which, but if you sleep in my bed, it's 5 silver, and even if you do get bit up by bed bugs, I don't want to hear about it.
All right, don't get your breeches in a tie. He'll kind of fish out 5 more silver pieces. He kind of places them on there and kind of hovers his hand for a second. Fine. He kind of slides them over.
Give me a your choice, persuasion or intimidation check.
We're going to go with persuasion. That's a 17.
As you reluctantly pull your hand off of your silver pieces, he looks at you. His eyes locked on yours as he puts his hand over the silver, slides the other hand down at the edge of the table, and you hear the clinking of coins as he drops them in there. Once he has the coins, he leans in. I like you, friend. Here. And he disappears out in the back. You hear the clinking of coins into a box. And he comes back out with another bottle. Sets it next to you. Sets the corkscrew and knife on the bar. And says, "What'd you say your name was, friend?"
Talmud.
Talmud.
I'm a stoneworker. If you need any work done, you know where to find me.
Right. I like you, Talmud. Now, I've got to see to Cantriel that her drink doesn't reach the bottom. And he bustles off, already pouring another glass, another mug full of mead for Cantriel. Actually, it'd be a horn, because he serves mead proper. So you going to hang tight at the bar, Talmud, or are you going to go try to talk to Carowin now, or what would you like to do?
I think he's going to head over to talk to Kerwin, but if you want to hop over to someone else for a bit, we can get back to that.
Griveth, kind of at the tail end of your conversation, that's where you see Talmud come in, and you're kind of in this conversation with Corky, but you do notice that he's having a sort of decent conversation with Garen, the barkeep. Cantriel, you would notice Talmud as well come in. They're actually not that far from you, so I think you would, especially since you're playing a little bit quieter music, I think you would have heard what was going on. I don't think Talmud was particularly trying to keep his voice down. But Vi, I want you to roll an insight just to see if you're able to pick up on their conversation. Since you're so far away, you positioned yourself at the back.
It's a 14.
You catch bits and pieces. Garen seems to, after a time, get along with Talmud. Warms up to him. I think you heard mention of Carowin. And you would have noticed as Garen kind of leaned in and had this sort of hushed voice. Garen, by the way, is he's a slightly overweight man in his mid-40s. He's got large red mutton chops that kind of come up into the mustache that's thick, but no chin beard here. And he's got long hair fringes that come down, but he's bald on top. And he just wears the kind of dirty apron and a loose-fitting shirt with billowy sleeves kind of rolled up. He looks like he's he kind of has the physique of an old-timey burly man. He looks being a bar owner, he can hold his own. He's broken up a few fights. Cantriel, are you going to continue just playing along? Do you take a break at all? Do you have any reaction to Talmud and Garen's conversation?
I think after
right about now, Garen is coming over to you, and he's reaching for the horn of mead that has maybe a few sips left in it, to quickly replace it with a new one, as he just looks up at you.
is all going all right there, love.
Hey, all as well as could be.
You got you riled up. What's happening?
Well, you've certainly picked up on what's going on. You've always been a bit of, well, His demeanor is always kind of nervous around you. He never looks directly at you for very long. He always seems to just kind of like, if he holds your gaze for too long, he gets a little flush in the cheeks and turns away, as he's like, well, I mean, you don't get me wrong. Your music's always, it's always great. It's a bit down tempo tonight. There's nothing wrong with that. It seems to sort of fit the mood around here with the Midsummer coming up tomorrow, and well, with what's going on with some of the other folk around town. But do you need anything?
Oh, no, I'm doing fine. You've been very good with the meat. Thank you, love.
You just don't need to mention it.
You sure you're all right? Your cheeks actually match your mustache, love.
It's sorry, it's a bit warm in here. It's getting to be the warm.
Before you get some fresh air, and it might be good since there's more bodies gathering.
So, yeah, maybe I'll just step out back, catch a breath of fresh air. But I'll be back before you drain that.
Okay, she gives him a big smile and she blinks those like eerie green globe eyes that she has.
He literally, as you do that, he just goes, "Oh dear God," and turns and scuttles out of the room. Vi, I think you've seen this behavior most nights that Garen seems to be just put off by. Not put off by. That's the wrong words. Thrown off is more appropriate there. You would also notice, and Talmud, you would notice this, as I kind of imagine at this point, you just kind of have turned and maybe you've got your back to the bar and you've got this Kiergan ale, and you're taking your first sip of it and taking in the bar, and it's some of the best ale you've ever tasted, by the way, especially after the day you put in Holland Stone. It seems to almost have a magical coolness to it. It seems cooler than it should be. That it seems to, you can, as you're holding the bottle, it seems to not quite sweat, but just get a sheen of condensation, which is kind of bizarre because only the extremely wealthy have access to ice houses, let alone, waste that kind of luxury on ale. But it seems to bring out both the bitterness and the sweetness of the Kiergan. And you notice the patrons, mostly farmer types, men and women, even a few young men and women that seem maybe like in any other city, maybe they're a bit too young to be in the tavern, with pints in front of them. You notice the human woman kind of sticking to herself, in the corner. You see, of course, you see and hear the Eladrin woman with playing the music. There's a small gnomish woman and a large scarred human man that seem to be in an intimate conversation. The gnome's hand upon hers as she seems to be telling him something important. You see Carowin and some of the other important people in town are deep in conversation. And you can see Carowin is just starting to kind of sit up a little bit more in her seat. She is a human, and she kind of sits up, and she's got that physical stature of somebody who looks like she's not slamming her fist, but she's kind of two fingers, and she's pointing for emphasis at the table as she seems to be putting a final point on what she's saying. And she looks like she's about to get up from the table.
So, having been warned that she's going to be making announcements soon, and it looking like the conversation she's having is kind of reaching a close, Talmud's going to hop up and grab Girta, his maul, and make his way over there as quick as he can, but stand at a considerable distance, and just kind of clear his throat over the music.
Oop. Hold on a second. I just bumped something on my controls. I need to make sure I don't screw up the window. Apologies. There we go. You walk over and you clear your throat, and you can, at this point, you can kind of hear as she's talking, kind of emphasizing, we're going to need to find somebody that can investigate what's happening, and we're still going to need to deal with this emissary. As much as I would like to put an end to this thing, I fear it may also be the key to figuring out what happened to my children and their friends. Dear God, what do you want, dwarf? As you're kind of interrupting with your clearing of your throat. And then she turns and she kind of looks at you. Now, your family has dealt with Carolyn before, but have you dealt with her directly?
Maybe, but probably more in a way where she was dealing with some of the elders of the clan and I was simply nearby, maybe even in some sort of like service facility, like I was bringing drinks or just standing guard, something to that fashion.
And remind me again, what was the name of your clan?
Gedaun, Gedaun. Gedaun.
As she just kind of says that, and dear God, what do you want, dwarf? And then she looks at you. Oh, excuse me. Do I know you?
Is milady appropriate for addressing one of your station?
You hear a little bit of a chuckle from those around her. It's not necessary to call me my lady or any such formality. My name is Carolyn, and that will suffice.
Very well. Mrs. Hucreely.
Carolyn?
Yes, of course. Carolyn. I was sent because I believe you asked my family for a little bit of help. So I have come to deliver on that promise. Though, admittedly, I'm not a little bit of anything.
Oh, right. You are of the Gedauns.
Aye. Talmud is my name.
Talmud. Perhaps I knew your father.
You may have. He's a good man. He stayed at home and sent me in his stead. I'm supposed to be learning in the trade, and it's best assumed that I can do that out in the world.
Ah, yes, I've seen some of what you've been doing. The work you've seemed to have taken the initiative to just do around town, and already, well, Mei Ling here is an, she motions to a human man who is literally wearing a sash that says mayor on it. It's quite dingy and looks like it's seen better days, but he seems quite proud of it. As she addresses him, and he just kind of straightens it up and bows to you a bit. Yes.
Curtly bows his head.
Yes, Mei Ling has taken notice, and I believe already there are people looking to take advantage of the hard work. Pardon me, poor choice of words. Not take advantage, but show their appreciation for what you have been doing and see ways to use these, what you have been organizing. Sorry, I'm quite distracted this evening, and I do apologize. I will let you and the mayor perhaps talk about that at another time. You have come because of my request. I will be very brief and to the point, for I do have an announcement to make that will actually involve you if you are here to help. My son and my daughter and their friends have gone missing. They, for whatever reason, felt it was in their best interest to explore the ruins of the so-called Sunless Citadel north of town, and it's been nearly a month, and not a word has been heard from them. With the Midsummer approaching, we know that the goblins will be sending their emissary to deliver the apple. Yes, I can see the look of confusion upon your face. It's not something you necessarily need to concern yourself with the details of. I would like you, and perhaps any others that we can task to this, to see if you can find my children and bring them home safely. But I wish not to repeat myself too much. If you will excuse me, Talmud, it was, yes?
Aye.
Please, I will address the crowd as a whole. Excuse me, Mayor. And she strides across the tavern and begins striding very purposely towards you, Cantriel. As she she stops and stands about 3 feet from you and just is looking at you with a look of expectation, but she's not interrupting you. She's just standing there.
I smile over at her and I quickly strum my lute. Pardon everyone, we have an important announcement. Please listen and give your attention to my dear friend Carowin.
In the same way that Garen seems to be flush and kind of stuttery around you, for that same reason, she holds the opposite. She doesn't necessarily treat you bad, but she just seems to be a little chilly around you. Yes, thank you, Cantriel. I will need the stage for just a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen of Oakhurst, and at this point, almost everybody has already been quiet, having seen her stride across. As you all know, and some of you have just learned, as she looks at you, Talmud, tomorrow is Midsummer's Eve. The goblins will be sending their emissary to deliver the fruit. I've spoken to Mayor Ling and the towns, you folk, and many who could not be here tonight have contributed to the purchase of this apple. We have raised a sum total of 50 gold pieces. I know a few people seem to kind of grumble at this a little bit. Yes, I know it's a bit more than we usually pay, but it is at the threshold of what we are willing to give the goblins. Some of you also know that a troop of adventurers came through town not but 4 weeks ago, and nothing has been seen of them. Even fewer of you know that Telgin and Sharwin, my son and daughter, were among them. So I have an extra interest in seeing them return to me. Now, The Gedaun clan of dwarves, whom my family has had dealings with for quite some time, and whom I trust immensely, have sent Talmud here to assist. And I do believe he has already agreed, by his presence here, to take on this quest. Am I correct, Master Dwarf?
I have but one simple question. It seems the relationship with this town and the goblins is... It would be upset if we were to have to forcibly rescue anyone that was down there, or defend ourselves, violently if necessary, against these goblin folk.
I will address that question more directly in a few moments.
Very well.
Corky, it looks as though you have already spoken to Griveth. Griveth, our town has welcomed you here for nearly a year. This will, in fact, be your first Midsummer's Eve since you arrived. And your presence is, of course, greatly appreciated here in the town, and the way you have helped Corky. And I believe she has already apprised you of this very situation. Have you agreed to take upon this quest?
She has warned me of the danger, and I step forward to take this quest.
Very well. But two is hardly what I would consider safe to send into the depths of this chasm in search of my own two children, who, much to my chagrin, were capable adventurers. Whom amongst you, the people of the town of Oakhurst, would be willing to lend your hand, your sword, your cloak, your very person on this quest? Almost immediately, you hear the squeaking screech of a chair on the hardwood as a chair is pushed back, and a young man who looks like he's barely 16 stands up and puts his hands on the table, and he says, "Well, you know I'm going to do it, Carolyn. You couldn't keep me out of there. I see what them goblins do. Yeah, they bring us an apple every year. And it's already the man he's sitting with is pulling him down. And you can see she's kind of got a smirk on her face. He said, "No, duh. Just let me do it this time." I appreciate your willingness to, without hesitation, serve Oakhurst, Baron. But perhaps you should worry about when you're going to get your first beard before you agree to descend into the dark where goblins and who know what else dwells. There are many more capable people here in the town, and perhaps Felocial could make use of you in the honor guard when the emissary arrives. And you can see the half-elf who is the town constable, Felocial. She crosses her arms at this mention, and she just kind of rolls her eyes like, "Oh, God." Who else among you would be willing? And Talmud, my friend dwarf, this is where the second portion, to answer your question, and perhaps encourage others to journey into the darkness, comes into play. As many of you know, we plant the seeds from this rare apple every year, and every year they grow into saplings, and every year they vanish. We don't know how they are doing it, but we suspect the goblins are trying to prevent us from growing these magic fruits. So we would like to know, where are they getting these apples? And why is it only once a year that they bring them here? Who else would like these questions answered? Who else will join Griveth and Talmud? Two relative newcomers to Oakhurst. Who would join them on this quest? As she looks around.
Cantriel steps forward. Well, I'd be happy to go with them and make sure that they're fine and cared for and help them in their quest at the moment. I know what it's like to lose family members.
Do you ever wear any visible weapons, Cantriel?
I keep a rapier tucked in the back part of my belt.
She looks over at you with that usual kind of that kind of coldness. She kind of looks you up and down, and her eyes land on the rapier. And she says, "You use that blade as good as you do that loot."
I can use both to my advantage and convince people to do things I need them to do.
She looks from you over at Garen, the barkeep, who already has another horn of mead. He's just finished pouring it. And he has just started taking a step towards you as you say this. And Keowen looks over at him and he just kind of goes, like he got it for himself. But he doesn't say anything. He's just beet red. Yes. Very well then. Cantriel, our minstrel, shall accompany Griveth and Talmud. Would anyone else dare accompany them? Baron, you are eager to join. Perhaps Vecker, your father? Vecker kind of... Jeoth, your family's young and strong. And each time she's calling on different people, Vi, you see, as she does that thing where as she turns her head, she flicks her gaze like she's deliberately looking past you.
Yeah, and every time she says a person and they shake their head, you see Vi begins to laugh louder and louder, and it's this wheezy laugh, intermittently filled with coughs. And she takes a rolled cigarette and she lights it. Do you really think that a bunch of farmers are going to want to, what? Risk their lives for... And I mean, it is quite an unfortunate circumstance, but these people have families as well.
You hear... The only sound you hear is the hard-soled boots of hers as they walk slowly and deliberately across the tavern towards you. A gentle creak of the floorboards as she's stepping across towards you. She stops immediately in front of your table. Blows away some of the smoke. Every night that you are here, you sit quietly in the corner, watching, observing, and I dare say judging everyone around you. You seem so willing to speak for the people of Oakhurst. What about you? Or will you go hide back in your apothecary?
You cannot guilt me as you have the others. Let me see. And she looks to Griveth. You have someone who, let me guess, you believe in destiny. Ah, all right. And then she looks to Talmud. She's like, and you, I sense a bit of cenotaph fever. And let's not forget about the early onset alcoholism.
Oh, it's fully developed, I promise.
I stand corrected. And the minstrel. You're telling me that this is the group. What do you say about putting a little bit more on the pile? Of course, we are risking our lives.
Without breaking eye contact with you, she reaches around onto her belt, pulls a leather pouch off the back, sets it down, opens it up, holds them out. All gold coins. Tulgrin and Shawin, my son and my daughter are amongst those missing. I would see them returned safely. If you cannot find them, for it has been quite some time, and I'm a realist, they may not have survived. Find and bring me their signet rings, and I will pay you, all of you, 125 gold pieces per signet ring. If you bring my children back to me, I will double that. If that's what it takes to convince you to rescue my children, then that's what I'll do.
Oh, do you think I'm some sort of monster? Trading children for gold coins? No. I would like a couple of seeds to the apple that we find.
Talmud very quickly shuffles over. Well, I'm not a monster either, but I do have to eat like one. And he kind of scrapes all of the coins off of the table very quickly and puts them away.
As you reach out to the coins that fell upon the table, she's not breaking eye contact with Vi. She puts a firm hand on yours, Talmud. The gold will be yours upon the return of my children or their signet rings. As for you, you have been here since before the goblins started showing up, bringing these apples every Midsummer's Eve. I've seen you lurking about during the transaction. I've seen you watch as the apple has been divvied up amongst those who needed it most. I've seen you lurking about as the seeds were cultivated. And I've seen you shake your head as every year, for the last 12 years, those saplings have disappeared. Why now, Vi? Why now, after 12 years?
My means.
You would trade apple seeds for the lives of children?
My motivations are my own. If we don't find the apple seeds, consider this a gift for your kindness for letting me live here for all this time. But if we do find those seeds, that is all I ask.
Very well. You four, Griveth, the Holy, Cantriel, the Minstrel, Talmud, the Stonecutter, and Vi, the Cunning. She says it in a way that's not really meant as a compliment, but not quite an insult. And maybe she even hesitates on the syllable just so you think she's about to insult you very darkly. And she settles on the word cunning.
Griveth jumps in and says, kind of leans his large bulk forward and says, see your friend sitting here. No one else volunteers. She has come up to volunteer. Many times have I gone to her apothecary and fetched the potion that would help a small child who had a fever or a sickness. I cannot stand for this putting down of this valuable member of our community.
Give me a persuasion check, Griveth. And I'm going to say do so with advantage.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that was good. 18.
Kaowen, as you speak, Griveth, Kaowen, you actually see her drop her gaze. And she looks down at the floor. She looks at the gold coins and the coin purse in her hand. And you would all just see as she seems to visibly deflate. Her shoulders slump. And you see the weariness that she's been carrying for the last few weeks of her children being missing. And she looks to you, Vi. And this time in her eyes, you see not Kaowen the merchant noble, Kaowen used to getting her own way, Kaowen who, though Mayor Ling is the face of government in town, you know that Kaowen, through no dark machinations, though, she just seems to be the one who actually runs this town. All you see are the eyes of a mother missing her children. And this is probably the first time in the 15 years you've been here that you're glimpsing the real Kaowen who clearly, I forgot her name. Kaowen.
And Vi would put a hand on her shoulder and almost take her, and then she would cup her hands in Kaowen's on Kaowen's face, and she would just say, "We will do what we can. I will make sure that your father continues to get what he needs. There's a storage in the back. Take from it what you will, and what you need."
She reaches a hand up to touch your hand. And you feel the soft hands of somebody who may once have done hard labor, but she's used to being in charge. She has no calluses on her hands. She grips your hand on her shoulder, and you can feel it trembling. You can see the tears welling in her eyes, and she can't even speak. She starts to open her mouth to speak, but she stops herself before her voice can betray her true emotion. She turns and looks to Felociel, the constable, and gives a nod. Felociel rises up, and Griveth, you would notice in Felociel, and maybe even you've talked to her, she too has a military background. She's a veteran, and you can see that in her stance. She has a military bearing about her. Kaelin turns and walks to the exit of the tavern. She looks back over her shoulder at everyone, and then she walks out. As soon as she walks out, some of the townsfolk begin to mutter. The din starts to rise a little bit. Garen goes back to start pulling some ales and beer and stuff. But Felociel, she picks up a chair and like a gavel on the floor. All right. Just 'cause Kaelwyn's left ain't no reason for all you to go about getting all riled up again. A few more points of order to take care of. The four of you, Griveth, Cantriel, Vi, and Talcum, I'm sorry, what was it? Talmud, sorry. Right. I suggest the four of you sit over there. And she seems to be motioning Griveth, Cantriel, and Talmud for you to join Vi. Garen, see that they've got food and drink as they get themselves acquainted with one another. Tomorrow, the Goblin emissary shows up. We intend to purchase the apple from them with my honor guard of 16. And you hear that kind of squeaky voice. Felociel, I'm supposed to be with you, right? My honor guard of 17. We'll see that the transaction takes place as it's supposed to. You lot. I don't even know what to call you, but, well, will you be heading out before the transaction, or will you wait until after we've procured the apple? Why don't you discuss it amongst yourselves and let me know? Let me know before you turn in for the night. And then she picks up the chair. Right, meeting adjourned. And her and Mayor Ling and some of the others begin to filter out as Garen comes around holding 4 drinks, a horn of ale, whatever you've been drinking, Vi and Griveth, and another bottle of the Kiergan for Talmud, all placed in front of Vi at the table. And the rest of the patrons seem to kind of go about their normal. The hubbub's a bit low, but yeah. So the 4 of you are now free to gather around and introduce yourselves and determine what your plan is going to be.
So yeah, we kind of, we kind of all know each other to a certain extent, not to a great extent though, because
right.
Right. So we know of each other more than this is us really kind of just our first kind of face to face. We pass each other, or with Vi, I've picked up functions or potions or whatever, but it's not like we've had long conversations or anything, as she's a private person. So so we're just kind of staring at each other. I kind of lay down on the table. So what do you all think of waiting for the apple to arrive? I don't see the advantage in that. Do you?
Do we know? Do we know like how to get in? Has anyone like approached it? Do we know like where?
Yeah, you know that there is a where the old road continues north of town, about 7 to 10 miles outside of town. There is a kind of a ravine where it almost appears as though the earth has been just sundered in this area. At this point, it's been there so long it has an almost natural appearance to it. And it's said that a long time ago, there was a ancient dragon cult that had a citadel that was there. And there is some rumor that some magical almost apocalypse caused this citadel to crash when the ground was sundered, and that it lies in ruins, though some say not entirely ruined, beneath or in the depths of this gorge.
Oh, it fell into the ground.
It literally collapsed. The ground opened up beneath it, the legends say, and the citadel collapsed into the darkness. Somebody, I will allow anybody, since you've all kind of been in town long enough, except for Talmud. If you do this, you do so at disadvantage. Give me a history check.
I have a pretty good history I can check.
Is it related to stonework?
It is not.
Okay.
Well, my 18 plus or 19 plus a 5, how's that?
Ooh.
Fantastic. Well, apparently I still have that notification enabled, so that's awesome. A shout out to What Ya Looking At for cheering a bunch of bits.
Ooh.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Josh, What You Looking At is our longest subscriber to the channel.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
All right, so you got a 19 plus 5. Anybody else?
I got a 14.
I didn't roll.
Okay. Cantriel, I think you as you've been sitting here, so you've learned a few things in your time here, playing and just kind of being here in the Old Boar Inn and even around town. You've picked up on a few things around town. You know that where the old road grows closer to this scar in the land, it's an area known as the Ashen Plain, which is an incredibly lifeless area. Nothing grows there. It's almost like a mini desert through there. And you know that the desolation that was caused in this area was due to the long ago rampage of a dragon by the name of Ashardalon. You also know that not a lot of people know this or believe this. You know that the cattle herders don't take their stock too far afield these days. There have been increased rumors just here and there with very little substance, and it seems to be mostly the shepherds and cattle herders. Increased rumors of monsters showing up at night, an occasional cow or two disappearing. There were some farmers arguing, one claiming that he found 3 dead cows that appeared to have been punctured hundreds of times by tiny needle-like weapons. But there's never been any sight of any creatures, nor has there been any trails left by these things. Of course, you had learned about the children of Keowin, so that wasn't too much news to you about the disappearance of them. Vi, you said you also did it. I think you said you got a 14.
Yep.
You actually, one thing you know, having been here the longest and the only one of this group that has witnessed the sorry, apparently he's somebody showing off with their Harley. Sorry, I have a main street on the other side of my window here. You, having been here the longest and having witnessed this exchange multiple times, you know that it's not just at Midsummer. That occasionally the goblins show up during the winter solstice. And they don't bring a bright red apple. They bring a pale white apple. But nobody is there to purchase the apple. There is no honor guard. The apple often just appears. And after the first time it showed up, nobody is willing to touch it, because 9 years ago, the first midwinter that it showed up, it was a farmer's daughter, 7 years old, that found the apple. And Felocial, that night, after many drinks, had confessed that even after her time in the military and the things she's seen in battle, one of the hardest things she's ever witnessed is the tiny fingers of the dead girl curled around that white apple, poison even to the touch. Did I even answer your question? I don't even remember what the original question was.
The question was, what was the question?
I think you asked something about what was known about the ruins.
Could you repeat the question?
Okay.
Yeah.
I realized I just went on all this lore and I may not have answered your question.
It was, do we know, like, where the entrance is to this place?
Yes. So, sorry. To get back to the part about the Ashen Plain and where this scar in the land is, the road actually grows very close, 7 miles outside of town, grows very close to the gorge. And there's actually, it's said that on either side, on both this side and across the chasm on the other side, there still stands ruined pillars of where the citadel once stood. And the few times that adventurers have come through, they have gone in there. You would also know, I think, this last piece just because of your time here. And that is that you have heard Garen tell the story. It probably came up in the last few weeks when Talgan and Sharwin disappeared. That others in the past have come asking about the Sunless Citadel by name, but it was actually the year before you arrived in town that there was a lone human, kind of grim and dark, that stopped by. Garen had said he believed his name was Barrick or Bellick or something like that. But the weirdest thing about him was that he had with him a very large pet frog. I just happen to have a giant frog mini here.
As you do.
As one does.
So I think that Vi would just... She would just kind of pause. There perhaps could be another way that the goblins go in that we do not know of. So it may be advantageous for us to follow. Though I have heard rumors that goblins are quite perceptive when it comes to being followed. So there's that added danger.
They're only so perceptive because they're so used to following and sneaking about.
But there might be something to following the breadcrumbs and finding if we can get in elsewhere.
I agree. I think we should follow the little bastard. Excuse me.
So wait for them to deliver it and then follow the retinue back to... Ah,
Right?
That might be
interesting.
our better bet. So far, it hasn't worked out for those going where they have gone, and we know of where they can go in.
That might be the way to go.
If we don't just kill him, that is. That's my view.
Hold your weapon, hold your weapon. At least until we... At least we'll till the ends its usefulness.
All right. So we collect our needs, and we'll meet at this exchange, and best think of ways we can keep ourselves less noticeable.
Sounds like a plan then. All right. Time to get drunk.
Keep a clear head, dwarf.
So it sounds like you have agreed to wait until after the emissary shows up and the transaction's complete, with the intent to try to track the goblin and see where he goes, or they go.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of the evening, Talmud proceeds to drink the entire stock of Kiergin. I would like a constitution check, Talmud, as Kiergin is much stronger than ales you're used to. And because of your dwarven resilience, though you're immune to poisons, I'm going to let you do this check with advantage.
Excellent. Okay, so a con check.
A saving throw.
Okay, that's a dirty 20.
A dirty 20.
Yes, sir.
There's a couple times after the fourth bottle, as you're working on the fifth bottle, and you're looking over and seeing two more left, that you feel that you've never really gotten this from alcohol before. You just feel your stomach turn over. The coldness that seems to somehow be keeping this ale chilled is chilling your very gut. And there's a moment where you think you might just suddenly... But the thought of all of that precious Kiergan ale going to waste as it passes back through your throat and mouth stops you before it even rises up. And you power through the last two bottles.
You would see a small Talmud, as you're drinking, you would see kind of this small bowl be pushed over to you from Vi, and it has this paste that she has been working on in it, and it's this disgusting green color. Put this under your tongue, and you'll thank me tomorrow.
Kind of eyes it. Again, one of those like blonde caterpillars kind of raises up. I'm pretty sure that those plants have been in your mouth.
But I'm pretty sure it's going to keep what you put in your mouth down.
I'm not really one for vegetables, personally, but I'll give it a try, I suppose.
A leaf isn't a vegetable. You're fine.
He'll kind of dip his finger in it, his big, fat, thick finger. I'll have to take your word for that. I don't really know the difference, nor do I care. And he kind of scoops it up and just like plops it under his tongue and kind of works it around. That's disgusting. I'm not sure if it's the plant or your saliva.
Well, better you deal with the disgustingness than us being left to clean up after you.
That's true. It would be rather disgusting. They had mutton for dinner.
All the better to keep it down then.
And so, all of you turn in for the night. Griveth, have you been staying at the shrine? Do you keep a room at the shrine in town?
I do, but this night I go over to Cantriel, and I look a bit embarrassed, and I say, Cantriel, don't take this the wrong way, but can I sleep in your room tonight?
You'd rather be closer to where everything's going to be happening, wouldn't you?
Yes.
I have a comfy chair. There's an ottoman you could put your feet up on if you're good with that.
All right, thank you.
That's fine. You go get started. I'll stay by just a little bit longer.
I'll wait.
All right, you're sure.
So he waits till you go in the room.
All right, so Cantriel readies herself, and she hops into the bed and pulls the sheets up, like, up to the chin. Right and ready, you can come in.
She said, he plops down on the chair, and he says, I know this might be a lot to ask, but could you sing me a song to put me to sleep?
Slightly rattled from this evening, are we?
I don't sleep very well when I'm alone, and your songs soothe me. I know this is a bit awkward.
It hasn't been awkward yet for you?
So it's kind of a comical scene, like him sitting in this chair. He's this huge man sitting in this chair, trying to cover himself up with a small blanket. So he's got, his huge legs are jutting out, and he's trying to get comfortable. He's not very comfortable for someone his size. But he tries to pull the blanket up as much as possible, and he's just waiting for your song.
All right. So Cantriel, she kind of like sits up and she sells like the comforter up here, and she's got her blonde hair's down in braids on either side. So it's like this quirky innocence, but she's got a sort of sarcastic grin going. Is there any song in particular you wanted?
Just kind of a sweet song, a soft, sweet song to soothe my dreams.
You like that star song, don't you?
I sure do.
All right. Lie back your head, close your eyes.
Okay, so you start singing your song, and it doesn't take him very long, but he zonks out, and he just starts snoring horribly, like like, and when his head leans back, he's pretty badly scarred, but you see there's a lot of scars, on his neck and everything. So maybe maybe it has something to do with his snoring. I don't know, or maybe it's just the chair itself. But yeah, his snoring is just horrible. Like it's going to be hard for you to get to sleep unless you're like a solid sleeper.
I step out of bed and I have the bed sheet pulled around me and I pad downstairs because I still hear Garen up. And I kind of walk over to Garen. Might you have an extra room for me for tonight?
You know, of course. Yeah, we can set you up. No charge, of course.
Oh, don't worry. Just something small, since it seems our friend has something of a competition with a local bear.
Right, let's hope the others can sleep through it. And he does set you up with another room. Vi, would you go back to your apothecary, or would you stay here? Your apothecary's not that far away, I imagine.
She would, just so that she can get, she can kind of pack up. She brings a lot of these herbs and she has this like big satchel, and she also brings in her walking staff, and she takes kind of a deep breath. But she would return rather quickly after, kind of thinking that she'll just stay the night and just to be there bright and early in the morning.
And when you show back up, Garen is kind of ushering the last of the folk out. He's tasked young Baron with, who was so eager to join, with helping the thoroughly inebriated Talmud to his room. And he just kind of looks at you, Vi, and he says, "Your room has been paid for. That's the one down on the left. It's good that you're all here. It's a good thing you're all doing." As he finishes up sweeping and wiping down the bar, as you all head to different rooms, as the silence is punctuated by the slightly muffled snoring of Griveth. You all eventually fall asleep. In the morning, in the early morning, you are all awoken. Griveth, you recognize the sound of the shrine bell ringing.
So I immediately leap up, grab my gear, and run out in a panic. Is it a shrine for a danger or just for a call?
It has a slightly slower, a much slower tone to it, with less urgency. It seems to be the chime that seems to be used whenever Corky has told you if there's necessary to gather the townsfolk. Vi, you know this chime, this bell, to be the tolling to indicate that the emissary has arrived.
Oh.
Talmud and Cantriel, you just hear the tolling of the bell, awakening you from your sleep, and you can hear as the others are bustling outside, heading out the door of the Old Boar Inn. As everybody makes their way outside, and the chime seems to die down, and you see even Philocial, the constable, is still fastening her sword belt, and there is young Baron is kind of tagging along, bleary-eyed behind her, trying to help her fasten a few straps on her armor, as she seems to have been caught off guard. It seems that Corky was the only one who was keeping an eye out and noticed the very early arrival that you now see in the center of town a single, slightly gray-skinned goblin holding in cupped hands a very large, bright, almost glowing red apple. And that is where we will end this session.
Oh, this is so much fun.
You guys,
Awesome.
Love it.
you guys, I gotta tell you, I had no intention of this session staying in the town of Oakhurst, but you guys just made it so freaking awesome. I love it when, especially as Megan mentioned, Megan has never played with Scotty and V before. V and Scotty have played before. V and I have played. There's all this mix of people that have played, but this group has never played together before. And
Right.
from the get-go, and I've seen people say this in the chat, both on YouTube and on Twitch, in character, there's a camaraderie, but you, the players, just have this instant rapport that is just making this. I know this is going to be a great mini campaign. So I want to, first off, because I said before we went on the air, when we were talking over house rules and things like that, that I often forget to award inspiration. But tonight, I'm going to award each one of you 1 point of inspiration for a freaking awesome session. We'll call it 0.5. As we just riffed off of each other. We built the story together, and just a tremendous foundation for what this mini campaign is going to be. I want to thank, as I said also at the beginning, this was the first Mini Terrain Domain simulcast on YouTube and Twitter, and it seemed to go off very well. We've had quite a few people watching this entire time, people very active in both chats. A couple of shout outs to What You Looking At and JTDNDDM for dropping some bits and getting on the leaderboard. I hope to, in the not too distant future, incorporate that into rewards where you guys as players can earn natural 20s or natural 1s.
Ooh, yeah.
Healing potion, the interaction with the audience where the audience can purchase benefits for you guys, or banes. I also want to give a huge shout out to a few people. Nate, WASD20, for the Twitch Prime subscription. JTDNDDM, if I'm not mistaken, subscribed with a tier 3 subscription. That is phenomenal. Thank you so much. And he or she or whoever that is, I really don't know who that is.
He's a friend of mine. That's Jason.
Yes, has mentioned that you invited them, and they do not regret it. So I am glad you are entertained. Here's to lots of new friends in the chat. I do believe that part of that sub was expressly attributed to my beard. I accept that. So with that said, we are going to give each of you, I'm going to give each of you a chance to kind of promote what you have to promote before we head out of here. But just remember that everyone watching, this is just the first session. We will be here every Thursday at this time for the next few weeks. There might be some interruption as schedules as we deal with it. I'm going to try to drag this out as long as these players will let me, because this is a blast. I love this dynamic, and as long as we can do it, I'm down for it. But Sunless Citadel isn't a infinite adventure. It's not a full campaign, but we'll see what we can do with it. And then stick around after we close out the stream. If you missed it at the beginning, there will be another. This stream has been brought to you by Absolute Tabletops, forthcoming Kickstarter for Shadows Over Drift Chapel, part of their Any Award nominated Adventure Kit series. Their first Kickstarter was absolutely phenomenal. For the Oath of the Frozen King adventure kit. Jeremy, Megan, myself, we've all run this. Scotty, I don't know if you or V have heard of it or have run it or
I've heard it, but not
done anything with it.
Heard but not run. Yeah.
I've reskinned it a number of times. You can head to absolutetabletop.com. On YouTube, it's currently available in the description. The link to Absolute Tabletop's Kickstarter page, as well as the Absolute Tabletop official group, where I have met such wonderful people as Megan and Jeremy, and also Organized Games. V, I know, is a part of that group as well. Scotty, I'm not sure if you're in there or not. But it's a tremendous group of people run by Absolute Tabletop for organizing games, discussion, all that stuff. And of course, though others may promote this, and I've got to put a link in there. I forgot to put it in. Check out the Tabletop Crafters Guild Facebook page. Just so much awesome crafting. That's kind of, the excuse to get us all together. But we all do, I've showed this to Scotty before, but this is DM Scotty's Purple Worm. This was the very first craft that I did that hooked me in, as you've hooked so many other people in. So it's an honor to be able to run a game for you, sir. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to have all of you tell us, promote what you want to promote, plug what you want to plug, and then we're going to get out of here. So we're going to go in reverse order this time, and we're going to go over here with V.
Okay. So I'm V. I have the YouTube channel, The Crafting Muse, and that is crafting terrain, miniature painting, game accessories. I'm also really big about bringing the family into the game and bringing kids into the game. So join over there, subscribe if you'd like to. I also have a couple Facebook groups. One is just for the people who are fans and subs of my Crafting Muse channel. And I also have a group that's specifically dedicated to women who are creatively involved in tabletop RPG. So if you want to join us there, it's a great place for networking and getting to meet other women who are very like-minded. So come on over, say you saw me here, and instant entry type of thing. And you can also find me on Instagram, and I am very active on Twitch as well. So that's my spiel for tonight.
All right, and let's head on down to Jeremy.
Hey everybody. Jake, first of all, thank you, man. It's been a while since I've gotten the chance to play with you. I get to play with Megan a lot, thankfully. But Scotty and V, this is the first time that I've gotten a chance to play with you guys, and it's been an absolute blast. I cannot wait to see how this group interacts, especially out on the road whenever we start facing obstacles and things. My name is Jeremy. I run the YouTube channel, The Erasmus Expeditions, where I do a lot of live plays, kind of like this, though the production value is much higher here. I am also 1/3 of the podcast, The Dudes of Yore, with my buddies Jeff Doty and Chad Nick, who can also be found on YouTube. So go check it out. But I'm loving this so far. So I can't wait until next week.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. And Megan.
Yes, hi. I'm Megan. I am one half of the YouTube channel Dice on Ice. And we do live plays on there. We have a setting supplement that is out. It's called The Ravaged Wasteland of Griveth, and it's kind of a post-apocalyptic Dark Sun for 5e, and it's available for PDF and softcover on DriveThruRPG. I just wanted to say and echo everyone's sentiment of this is an awesome group. It's always really nerve-wracking when you go in and there's new people to play with, but I can already tell this is going to be a great group. There wasn't, it felt very natural, which is so great and so awesome for a campaign. So I am so excited to play next week.
And I just want to say, Megan, I've probably played with you more than anybody else. And there is our good friend, Chad Smith, who played in the Bastards of Bastion Sunday Night campaign a while back, is actually setting up in the not too distant future a game that will be the first time that Megan and I actually play together, because we've only ever DM'd for each other. But one of my favorite things about running a game for Megan is, even though she tells me about her character, I don't know very much until she opens her mouth, because Megan puts so much into the characterization of her character that it's just exciting for me, having played with you so much, to see what is she going to do next. And I kind of had a sense of your character, but when you opened your mouth, I'm like, okay, I know who this is. I know who I'm dealing with now. And I still don't. But everybody is just bringing... Jeremy's always great with accents, and I know V's trying to inject a little bit of a Benedict revenge in here, so... and I'm loving what Scotty's bringing with Griveth. So, Scotty, what you got, man? I'll unmute you.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, guys. Wow. I just want to keep playing right now. But, that was fun, so fun. Yeah, like this is going to be a great group, and like the town felt so alive. Like you guys just brought the town to life. And Jake just orchestrating that was amazing. Yeah, so thanks for having me. And like I say, I don't get to play that nearly as much, and it's fun to get to play. But yeah, you guys, if you guys don't know me, I'm DM Scotty, and I do crafts. I make terrain, and I started D&Ding again after a long stint not doing it, and then I wanted to do something that would, bring a little more value to the table, like, instead of just maps and things, I wanted to like have actual terrain, because I played a lot of war games, but I didn't want to have it interfere with the game, because when you play war games, you stand up. When you play RPGs, you sit down. You don't want to have all this stuff in your way, right? So I was trying to come up with a way to avoid that, and I came up with some cheap, easy way to do crafts, and it suddenly caught on. And I thought I'll do a couple of videos, and I sheepishly did a couple of videos. I'll do a couple of videos, and then that'll be it. And then people were keep doing video, keep doing it. And so now we have like the Tabletop Crafters Guild, and you guys inspired by the craft, and we have this wonderful, amazing community that's like. Other communities bicker and fight, and they're mean to each other. Our community is so fantastic. We don't have that kind of infighting or anything. It's a lot of encouragement, and it's just great. And with the terrain, I don't want to go too long, but with the terrain, Hankerin said something not long ago. I am going too long. Said something not long ago that really kind of said what I've always felt about the table. And what I feel about my table is that you need a campfire. Okay, when you're telling stories around a campfire, you need a campfire. And so if you're doing like terrain and stuff, that becomes the campfire for the story. And like we're doing theater of the mind here, I don't always do terrain. I do a lot of theater of the mind too. People think that's kind of weird that I don't do all, but I don't do all terrain. I don't lay out every hallway. I don't put every, I may have certain rooms and stuff, but I'll like theater of the mind that stuff. I don't have to have every single hallway and room and everything. But so I love theater of the mind, but yeah, that terrain kind of when it really matters in like a combat can really be fun, is like the campfire that bonds everybody together. So that's what I love about it. And this game that we're playing here is amazing. It's so fun. There's no other thing like role playing. Computer games, watching movies. It just doesn't compare. Nothing compares to role playing at all. You can't touch it with anything. So thanks for letting me be part of this group, and I can't wait to see you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scotty. And I think everybody would agree with me here. We don't say this lightly, that you have earned the name the Craft Father that so many people refer you to. I started playing D&D, and as a DM at the tail end of 4th edition, because a friend I used to do it way back in the day with second edition for a little bit in the army. And he was like, yeah, I know a couple people that would want to play. I think you'd make a great DM. And just something about it, I was like, man, I really think it would be cool to make this stuff. So I started researching on YouTube, and that's where I stumbled across DM Scotty, the theDMsCraft, and the Purple Worm. And I'm like, toilet paper and toilet paper rolls and glue? I think I could do this. And I knocked it out, and I'm like, holy cow, that not only does it look cool, but my word, was that fun. And as Scotty always says, it's so neat. So, it was a big part of that. And my players have benefited greatly over the years from the various crafts that I've brought to my table because of that inspiration. But I found in a surprising thing in D&D, and more so in the communities of the theDMsCraft, the Tabletop Crafters Guild, channels like V's The Crafting Muse, playing with people like Jeremy and Megan on a regular basis, and people like this. I think it's important to note that I think you would all agree we consider ourselves inclusive gamers. There's too much just bullshit going on in the gaming community, the fringes of the gaming community, I should say, and in other areas. And none of us here believe in any of that nonsense. This is our place to just play make-believe together for a little while. And like you said, Scotty, there's just nothing like role-playing. The surprise I found over the last few years was that I found a catharsis for minor depression and anxiety things that I don't get from video games. I don't get from movies. And I think that the audience, you don't normally, when you play at home, you're not playing to an audience, you're playing to your players. But we broadcast games like this because we want to share what we're doing with those of you that are sitting around this so-called campfire with us. So it's just, I'm just happy. And it's because of friends, all of you I've known in various capacities for a year or better on the internet. Some of you, two of you I've met in person. Scotty, we live relatively close to each other. We're only a state away. One of these days I gotta get down there. We meet up at like the Malted Meeple or something. It's got to be relatively close to both of us.
You haven't met him yet, and I have.
Right, you're even further away than I am. But I knew tonight was going to be good. I knew this mini campaign was going to be good. But this is just even better than my highest expectations. And I'm very much looking forward to what we're all going to do with this in the next coming weeks and whatever we do beyond that. So, a little bit about me real quick, because I blathered on a lot. Mini Terrain Domain. I've been doing crafting videos myself and actual plays I just found out my channel. I actually started it 4 years ago, in like 20 days, but officially it took on its real life about 3 years ago in November. And I never fail to mention this, that Nephthali Ramos, who many of us know as Nelson or Infinite Roleplay, told me if I didn't tell him how I made those miniature spiders, he was going to do a video himself. And so 3 months earlier than planned, I made a crafting video that is now still my most viewed video on the channel, on YouTube, Mini Terrain Domain. So yeah, I've been doing this for a few years, and I've run more games than I've done crafting videos. But yeah, that's what I do. I do it on Twitch. I do it on YouTube. You can find me on the Twitters at @MTD_Jake, where I'm very active there as well. Just a reminder, right after we say goodbye here in a moment, I'm going to run the promo that runs about a little over a minute. If you stick around for that, and then set your alarm, set your notifications, hit the follow button, and hit that chime bell on YouTube subscribe, all that good nonsense, so that you can be notified when we go live at the same time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, next week for Session 2 of the Sunless Citadel. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. For those of you that are new to the channel, this is how I end every stream, every game, every video. Imagine, build, play, and
It,
Mini Terrain Domain Sunless Citadel D&D mini campaign is sponsored by our friends at Absolute Tabletop. A vast and loathsome shadow approaches. Coming Tuesday, September 4th from Absolute Tabletop. Introducing the upcoming Kickstarter for Absolute Tabletop's second volume of any nominated adventure kits, Shadows over Drift Chapel. Shadows over Drift Chapel is a fantasy horror adventure set in Gloam, a Victorian colonial-inspired world brimming with eldritch horrors, flickering gaslight, and destructive black powder. This versatile adventure-building resource contains everything you've come to love about adventure kits. Modular locations and encounters, intriguing NPCs and fulfilling plot lines, encounter and scene generators ready for on-the-fly use, plus a few extra stretch goals if you'll help fund beyond the initial goal. Hither comes the Gloam. On Tuesday, September 4th, the Kickstarter begins, and the monstrosities and madness of Drift Chapel will be thrust upon you. Follow Absolute Tabletop on Kickstarter to get real-time updates and be one of the first to help fund their next adventure kit, Shadows over Drift Chapel.